Perfect. So, hola, bienvenidos a todos. Estoy muy entusiasmada para tenerlos hoy acá en el Chat and Learn con Power to Fly y Rowe Price, donde vamos a hablar sobre diversidad y cómo podemos ayudar a las mujeres latinas y cómo Rowe Price han ayudado a esas mujeres. And so thank you everyone for being here, and I want to say welcome. I'm so excited to have you on today's conversation. And before we get kicked off, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping rules. So, we really want you to participate. So turn your cameras on and write in the chat during today's conversation. We've had so many amazing questions come in pre-submitted, and so I'm not sure we'll get to them, but we would love to see your comments and questions coming through the chat. I'm just going to ask that everyone remains on mute. I will go ahead and continue to mute people as they join, just to avoid any background noise that might come in through Zoom. So thank you for being here today, and just want to shout that out. If there's anything that you'd like to comment or ask anonymously, please feel free to message me privately, and you can do so by finding me in the chat box and finding my name, Nicole Felter. And then this is being recorded, so we will send an email afterwards with the link. So with that, we really just want you to be present in today's conversation. And lastly, keep up with us on social. You can find us at Power to Fly at all social channels, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel where we are posting these daily chat and learns, and we have tons of content on there. And so with that, I'm so excited to have such a diverse panel of speakers from Rowe Price today. We have a few different Latina women, and then of course we have Jasmine Brennan as an African-American woman in asset management and at the company, who is a leader in diversity and inclusion. And so Rowe Price has been working on recruiting diverse candidates to come work at the firm since they started their first strategic partnership 30 years ago with an organization focused on increasing the number of diverse professionals at the firm. Power to Fly and Rowe Price have had a strategic partnership over the last several years, and we have carried out multiple chat and learns and other events, all with the goal of increasing the diversity in the pipeline and sorry about that, and making a more diverse workplace at Rowe Price. And so with that, I'm just going to remind everyone to please go on mute if you can. I'm trying to catch everyone myself, but thank you. So for the past several years, we've been doing outreach through Power to Fly, and I am so excited to present today's speakers who are going to further that mission with Power to Fly. And so I'm really excited to present Maria Fava, who is the Assistant Vice President of Corporate Events at Rowe Price. And then we have Natalia Garaosha, who is the Employee Meeting Team Consultant at Rowe Price. Gabriel Infante, who is the Director of Environmental Social Governance at Rowe Price. And then finally, Jasmine Brennan, who is the Senior Manager of Global Diversity and Inclusion at Rowe Price. And so, Maria, if you'd like to kick us off, each of our speakers will provide us with a brief introduction of herself. And so I'm going to hand it over to you, Maria, and I'm going to go on mute.
She might be on mute.
It's not letting me unmute.
There we go. We can hear you.
Great. Thank you so much. So great. Well, it's a true honor being with all of you today. So thank you for so much for inviting me to this panel. My name, as you said, is Maria Fava. My friends call me Maru. I was born and raised in Mexico City, and I moved to the United States when I was 19 years old to go to college. I have two grown children. I have a daughter who is a sophomore in college and a son who is finishing his MBA. In 2 days, I will be celebrating my 26th wedding anniversary. And as you mentioned, I actually started at Rowe Price right out of college. And right on the phone, they needed Spanish speaking individuals. I did not have a great finance background. I was a psychology major. And they just needed Spanish-speaking individuals, but I got a lot of support, a lot of encouragement, a lot of education. This company did a lot for me to grow my career. I left for a while to raise my children and start a business, and then I just recently came back under this role, and it's really an honor to come full circle and to be here with you today back at Rowe Price.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Maria, for being here. And with that, I will pass it over to Natalia.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Hola a todos. My name is Natalia Garayoa. I know my last name can be a little intimidating, but that's how you pronounce Garayoa. That is actually my married name. My original last name is Ramirez Peña. I am originally from Medellin, Colombia, born and raised, and came to the US when I was 21 years old on a cultural exchange experience. Definitely something that has changed my life forever. On that cultural exchange experience, I met my now husband, and I am also a mother of a 2-year-old, Mila Josephine. She's, my world. But I have been at T. Rowe Price for 7 wonderful years, and I have nothing but appreciation and gratitude with our company. I have never felt rejected, discriminated. So I also didn't have a finance background, just like Maria. So I just want to encourage all of you to, think outside the box and know that even if things might seem a little intimidated or might not necessarily seem a good fit, is worth the try and exploring. I started on the phones, customer service, and because of hard work and the opportunities that the company's been giving me, I am now part of the employee education meeting team, a job that I feel very passionate about and I absolutely love. And I am just so happy to be here to share my experiences with you, and I hope you find it very valuable. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Natalia, for being here. And thank you both to Maria and Natalia for sharing your story so far. And with that, I will pass it over to you, Gabriela.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Gabriela, or Gabby Infante. I was born in Mexico City, but I was raised by my maternal grandparents in Southern California. I joined T. Rowe Price 2 months ago amid the pandemic to take on the role of Director of Corporate Environmental, Social, and Governance. And I'd like to share with you that I've moved 10 times in the past 11 years, and I can finally say that I'm home. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for sharing that, Gabby. I can't imagine that either of those things must have been easy, onboarding during a pandemic and also moving so many times, but it's so lovely to hear that you've been able to find a home at T. Rowe Price and been able to share that. So thank you. And then I will pass it to Jasmine.
Thanks, Nicole. First, I'll start by saying that it's an honor to be a part of this conversation with such amazing women of color. My name is Jasmine Brennan. As you mentioned, I am the Senior Manager of Diversity and Inclusion, and I've been with the firm for 6 months now. I am of African American and Caribbean descent and a proud mother to a 5-year-old boy. I look forward to the dialogue, and thank you so much for having me.
Amazing. Thank you so much to everyone again for being a part of this conversation and being here today. And so with that, we're going to get kicked off into these pre-submitted questions. And like I said before, please feel free to drop any questions or comments that you have in the chat, and we'll try to get through them, although we have so much to cover in this time. And so going on, before our question, sorry, excuse me, I just wanted to also shout out the T. Rowe Price company page on Power to Fly. We'll cover this at the end a bit, so I want to get right into these questions. And so this first question, as a woman leader in any company, do you think women have to be louder and firmer to make their point and be heard as compared to men? Do you have any pointers on what women can do to make themselves heard more as a leader rather than as a woman? And I'm going to direct this question right to Maria.
I really, in my opinion, I believe that it really comes down to respect. I think if your team and your colleagues respect who you are and what you have to say, you don't necessarily have to be loud. But then the conversation goes, how do you earn that respect? And I feel like if you come prepared, if you speak with conviction, if you are accountable, if you believe in yourself, and I believe that a strong voice begins with a strong and confident mindset. So strong doesn't necessarily mean loud. I think with having great conviction and backing up your thoughts, you will be heard. I also feel like if you're expressive and you have passion in what you're sharing, it is contagious. I do think that with the Hispanic community, especially Latin women, that comes very naturally because it's part of our blood. But I do believe, in my opinion, that you don't necessarily have to be loud if you're well prepared.
I love it. And you make such a good point. And especially talking about that Latino blood that's so infamous, no? And all of the heat that comes from all of the culture throughout Latin America. So thank you so much for bringing that up and mentioning those points. And diving into this next question, I'd love to hand this over to Gabby. It looks like you've all accomplished so much in your careers. Can you speak about how you built your influence and reputation such that you were able to make such impressive impacts towards your firm and community?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for that question. And I'd like to frame it this way. So I started my career as an environmental, social, and governance consultant for a development bank based in Washington, D.C. This was back in 2010, when there was a lot of skepticism surrounding the importance of these topics and whether they were really, quote, here to stay or just a passing fad. As we're seeing today, environmental, social, and governance concerns are very much a mainstream issue and no longer viewed as a, quote, buzzword. So what I can say about my experience and having to overcome a lot of internal resistance to even keeping my role within the organizational structure is that I was able to leverage my experience as an environmental lawyer and show the contrast between being reactive versus being proactive. So for example, not having an adequate risk management strategy in place can result in substantial reputational damage, monetary losses, and of course, damages to the environment and society. So in this instance and throughout my career, successfully overcoming gender, age, and ethnicity biases was definitely an uphill battle. I will not lie about that. But the approach that I adopted as a promoter and really an educator of environmental, social, and governance topics was to bring my different stakeholders to the table, see what they had to say, and foster an open communication channel. And I will say this, there is no such thing as over-communication.
I love the point you make. Some of my colleagues might say that I tend to over-communicate, but way better to over-communicate than under-communicate and cause confusion, right? So better clear than not clear. Well, thank you so much, Gabby, for touching on that. And I would love to pass this question over to Jasmine. So what are some tips for having more transparent conversations around diversity in the workplace so that everyone feels safe sharing their questions and comments?
Wow, this is a great question, especially given the current social climate that we're living in and the need to really be transparent around addressing issues around inclusion, equity, and diversity. I'll start off by sharing some of what we've been doing here at the firm and then certainly address some of the best practices and the tips that we've learned over time. So over the past several years, we've hosted what we call diversity dialogues. And essentially, these are forums in which we invite associates of all backgrounds and walks of life to engage in conversation about their own lived experiences. And we found that by having these open and candid conversations about the experiences of our associates, told from that first person perspective, that allies are really able to expand their aperture for inclusion and multicultural competency. Since July, we've pivoted a bit and we've hosted several of these sessions that are really centered on race, specifically on the racial injustice and inequity that Black Americans face, and how structural and systematic barriers transcend into the Black associate experience at the firm. Several of our Black associates engaged in what we call safe space, closed door dialogue about the ways that this anti-Black racism and structural barriers impact them, while over 1,600 of our associates that are committed to supporting their Black colleagues participated in separate sessions around what we're calling active allyship. The reality is, even before the murders of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor, talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion has been challenging for some of us. And oftentimes it's been, kind of the elephant in the room, for lack of a better phrase. So the main suggestion that I have for these conversations is really setting the stage. Having more transparent conversations about diversity in the workplace requires what I've coined inclusive infrastructure. So essentially putting the right conditions in place so that all employees feel safe engaging in that dialogue. So a couple of things to keep in mind when framing some of this up, I would say, first of all, ensure that participants understand that when engaging in this conversation, they should be actively listening and listening to learn, not necessarily to respond. And also that folks are open to sharing their experiences with the intention of enhancing inclusion and seeking to understand the perspectives and experiences of others. I think that's incredibly important, and we've benefited so much from that approach. And then lastly, but I think super important is, folks engaging in these conversations need to be willing to hold themselves accountable and, quite frankly, the organization more broadly, so that we can take action based on the takeaways from these conversations.
I love everything you're saying, and I just want to say thank you for all the work that you're doing and congratulate you for all of this work, as I know it must not have been easy to start this job in the pandemic, and especially in the social climate, but it's just a really big task. So I want to say thank you for being a part of this and leading so much at Rowe Price. This is really fantastic to learn about, and creating the space for active listening. So thank you. And so moving into our next question, this one is also for Jasmine. Do you have examples of steps you have taken to increase diversity of your applicant pool? How do you encourage recruiters and hiring managers to think beyond their usual sourcing strategies?
Yeah, this is another great question, and certainly top of mind for us at Rowe Price. Specifically because we recognize that diverse perspectives within our teams really enable us to identify gaps that more homogeneous groups may not necessarily uncover. And in turn, that positions us to more effectively support our clients. So what we've done and will continue to do throughout our journey is take an integrated approach to diversifying our talent pipeline. So that ranges from targeting mid to senior level talent across the board, to engaging with early talent, educating our hiring managers and recruiters, of course, and certainly holding ourselves accountable. So in addition to identifying diverse professional organizations with engaged top talent in their membership base, our talent acquisition team is really committed to establishing true partnerships with these organizations. So within the scope of these partnerships, we are working to be actively engaged and accessible to both active and passive job seekers as we build this diverse talent pipeline. There are also several programs that we are leading in-house to cultivate diverse pipelines of what we're calling early talent. And so through some of these campus engagement efforts, we have really been able to see the positive effects of building a pipeline and building interest from emerging professionals in our firm. For example, every year we host a 1.5-day-long stock pitch workshop for women entering their first year of business school. That's led by some of the investment professionals on our team. We also host an MBA weekend every year in which diverse individuals have the opportunity to explore career paths in asset management and kind of understand a day in the life, but also learn more about our culture and what it might look like to work here as a full-time associate. Across the firm, holistically, we are really invested in internship opportunities and fellowship opportunities, again, in the hopes that the folks that participate in some of these early talent engagement opportunities join us full-time and truly help us to cultivate that diverse and inclusive workplace that we are working toward. I'd also share, educating our hiring managers is top of mind for us, and also key in diversifying talent pipelines. Earlier this year, we implemented a mandatory inclusive leadership training program in which leaders learned and applied inclusive interviewing techniques. So what we've seen is that by really reinforcing some of these best practices around, standardizing interview questions, capturing objective notes, and engaging with all candidates in a consistent way, our interviewers are less susceptible to unconscious biases and really more aware of some of their blind spots when engaging with candidates. And then last, but certainly not least, we hold ourselves accountable to slate diversity goals. Research has shown that by requiring these diverse slates of qualified candidates, it actually helps to mitigate what we call similarity bias. And in my words, that's kind of the mini-me phenomenon, where I might meet someone that is very similar to me in an interview process and not necessarily consider some of the other great attributes that someone that on the surface is not similar to me might bring to the role and to the firm. So we have actually been able to consistently meet or exceed our slate diversity goals rather by taking this approach.
I love this. I obviously love all of the initiatives that you have, but I think my favorite one is about the education in the interviewing process, right? Because I don't think this is a place that a lot of people are tackling right now. I think they're trying to look at the big picture without realizing how important training the people that are involved in this process are really, and essentially contribute to the overall diversity of the organization. So thank you for talking about that and highlighting that. And so diving into the next question, I'm going to pass this one to Maria. So if there are any concerns with the diversity on the team, do you think it's helpful or harmful to talk about these concerns with the entire team, or would you suggest keeping it with the leadership management team?
This is a tough one because, and I'm going to echo some of the things that Jasmine just mentioned. I believe, in my opinion, that leaders today and in this environment really want to create a more inclusive culture and workplace. So that being said, you know, sometimes fear will hinder making the decision whether we should be speaking with the team or we should be speaking with leadership. Sometimes they're concerned about maybe asking the wrong questions or saying the wrong things or being misinterpreted. So sometimes that can hinder progress. So I think the key to me, and again, it's just my opinion, is if truly there is a concern within your team that there's not enough diversity and you bring it up to leadership, I think being prepared and educated and having a plan in place to then bring to your team will make it, for me, a better result, better solutions, because now it looks like you're taking the steps and making action items to get where you want to be. If you want to have these conversations with your team and you don't have a plan in action, you have to be prepared to answer those tough questions because things are not being put in place to change that environment. So it is a tricky situation. I think you need to look into your team and the climate within your team and, you know, sort of just understanding the dynamics there to make a decision. But at the end of the day, if your goal is to make progress and to make change and to create a more diverse and inclusive environment, it can't be harmful. You're just already taking the steps in the right direction.
I love that. And also, you know, how many times have we seen diversity harm the overall, you know, goals of a company when it comes to, you know, diversity of thought and, you know, how tied they are together. Excuse me, I'm losing my words there a bit. But I want to say thank you, Maria, for highlighting that and encouraging people to bring it up because it is important, especially now. We need to talk about these things. We need to highlight the groups that we feel aren't being thought about enough in our immediate teams and in our larger teams. Amazing. And so I'm going to pass this question to Jasmine. I'm an individual contributor on a very small team that is primarily white or white passing. Leadership at my current company talks a lot about diversity and inclusion and wanting to do more or better to support BIPOC employees, but the messaging and action often stops with higher leadership. My larger team remains quiet and often does not show up for D&I initiatives and talks. What action steps can I, a Black woman, take to get people talking and participate in diversity initiatives?
Yeah, well, first I'll say to the individual that posed this question, I recognize that it is incredibly difficult to be the one or one of few people of color on a team. And so carrying the burden of educating others or rallying support for D&I is a weight that, quite frankly, you know, isn't yours to carry alone. However, I do firmly believe that we need to be the change that we want to see. And so often as people of color, we're the best positioned to influence others and really reinforce the business case from D&I within our spheres of influence. So, to that individual that raised the question, I commend you for seeking out strategies to engage your team and your colleagues in D&I. As I think about my recommendations, I would start by leveraging relationships with the folks that, this individual has formed rapport with. I found that oftentimes really well-intentioned colleagues simply don't want to say the wrong thing. And so, sometimes they end up saying nothing. I also think that in certain circumstances, individuals that don't belong to a certain diverse population may not understand that D&I initiatives and programming are open to them and that we need allies at the table engaging in these forums and moving the needle forward right along with us. So I would say as a starting point, consider perhaps seeking one or a few of them out and having some, one-to-one or closed group conversation about your own lived experiences and, the way they impact you both at work and in broader society. I think personal storytelling is so impactful. And it also sounds like D&I is a business imperative for the organization with some strong leadership support. So I would encourage, you to raise those areas of opportunity to enhance inclusion with your direct leadership and perhaps take on, a kind of leadership role yourself within the team in trying to enhance that level of engagement and interest. I will say though, be prepared because it could be opening up tons of different opportunity, perhaps in the form of a stretch opportunity in which you might be tasked with putting on a D&I hat. But overall, I think that it's fantastic that, again, this individual has the interest in heightening engagement with team members, and certainly think that there'll be a lot of receptivity, perhaps with starting with leveraging those personal connections and then just having conversation with direct leadership about what can be done to increase that participation.
Yes, for sure. And sometimes I think that we can think people don't care about these things, but you made a really good point about sometimes people are just scared or they don't know what to say. And I believe Maria said the same thing, that it can be tricky, and maybe you're in a position where you don't want to offend someone by what you say, but the best way to really go through that is to work through that. Speaking from a person who's in a point of privilege, right? And as a white person, you have to go into things with grace and just be willing to make mistakes and learn and grow from that, because it's a marathon, not a sprint when it comes to achieving diversity and working on diversity initiatives. So thank you so much, Jasmine, for your insights there. And so diving into the next question, Gabby, in our efforts to attract diverse candidates in the financial services industry, what non-traditional transferable skills or experience would you view to be valuable for roles in our industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I would like to frame it with something that happened to me recently. So I have to say, I've noticed a trend in general in certain companies to underestimate what are called soft skills. And I have to say, I think this is a mistake. And so the example that I want to bring into my response to this is that, when I applied to my previous role, which was a Wall Street financial analysis role, I had a completely different background from everyone else that interviewed that same day for that same position. And I was offered the job, and I was later explained that the reason I had been extended the offer was because I had shown through my previous experience how resilient I had been in not only being able to hold on to a role that was viewed as very much non-traditional within finance, which was really advocating for the environment and for society and for governance concerns, but because I had proven myself throughout the 10-year record of doing this, that I had not only proven the importance of these issues within a large organization, but I had built so many relationships, and I had established such a track record within that particular niche that I was eventually given a large budget, and I was able to hire people and eventually have a very robust publication platform. And so I even had, very robust knowledge events. And so because I had been able to prove my resilience and also my adaptability, I was offered this role, which, on paper, it didn't seem like a great match, but in the end, it worked out well because they were really looking for a team builder. And so what I would like to rescue from that experience is that, communication skills again, and I did say that I would bring communication back into the conversation, really allowed me to build partnerships across a large organization. And, those are the soft skills that you never know where they're going to take you. And in my case, they brought me to a job offer in New York, and that was really exciting for me.
One of my favorite things to talk about is transferable skills, and especially as women, how we downplay the transferable skills that we gain so often through other experiences that other people don't have the opportunity, whether that's, moving to a new city, whether that's having children or assisting with elderly family members or whatever unique experience you've had. We downplay it so much, and it is such a vital part of our growth, right? Because like communication, negotiation, persuasion, to name a few things, these are so valuable in any workplace. And I really applaud just what you said about transferable skills, and especially these quote unquote soft skills, because we say soft, but are they really soft? It's really important to find leaders who are able to communicate and have difficult conversations. And these aren't easily learned skills. So thank you so much, Gabby.
Sure.
And moving on to our next question. Jasmine, what changes can our industry make to create more diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I think this is a phenomenal question. They all have been fantastic. I feel like I keep saying that. But, as I think about DEI and our industry, but even society more broadly, there's so much opportunity. And I feel as though at the firm, we are incredibly committed to the journey and to making progress over time. What I would say is, from an industry perspective, as I referenced earlier, it's so important for us to remain laser focused on cultivating these talent pipelines, these diverse talent pipelines, and to invest in inclusive interviewing practices in which bias is minimized. And, we have some standardized processes around how candidates experience the interview process. I would also say that it's incumbent upon us in the industry to shake up the status quo of recruiting as we know it, to assess our recruitment processes, the way that job postings are written so that the language is truly inclusive, the fact that, diversifying the professional organizations and the colleges and universities that we're engaging with, and really casting wider and deeper nets to attract diverse talent where that diverse talent is, right? Because I think that especially at this point, the job market is hot and a lot of organizations have committed to diversifying their workforces. And so it's important that our industry is at the forefront of really taking innovative steps to attract diverse top talent. I would also say in-house, it's important to really evaluate the processes and systems to ensure that there is no inherent or potential sources of bias or inequity that could impact diverse associates or folks that are members of marginalized groups. I also think that accountability has been something that I've brought up several times and that we really wrap our arms around and embrace here at Rowe Price. And I think it's important to heighten the accountability for diversity, equity, and inclusion across the organization. I think that everyone plays a role in cultivating inclusion and diversity, and that there should be accountability measures in place to ensure that everyone's on board and doing their part. I also think as we think about the associate experience and life cycle, that things like advocacy and sponsorship are so critically important. And so enhancing proximity of high potential diverse talent within the organization to leaders, and leaders being disproportionately invested in talent and diversifying their succession pools is also critically important. And I would say, last but not least, Ensuring that inclusivity is truly a leadership competency. I think we all can agree that our experiences are largely shaped by our direct managers. And so it's incumbent upon us, I think, as an industry to really ensure that being able to lead inclusively is measured as a true leadership competency so that all associates can really thrive within their roles and within their respective organizations.
Jasmine, when you speak, I just can't help but mentally say yes, yes, yes to everything you're saying. You put everything so clearly and so easy to digest, and understanding the biggest steps that we have to take, and especially accountability, right? Holding people accountable for what they're saying that they're going to do, especially in this time when there's so much emotion behind diversity and inclusion, and talking about the importance of it. And so making sure that we're keeping up our end of the bargain to say it, so that we are making real strides and making differences. So thank you again for your insights there. And then I'm going to pass this question over to Natalia. So how can non-HR people / teams help with diversity and inclusion efforts at their organization?
Thank you for the question. I feel like this is where I absolutely thrive. I just feel so passionate and so proud of my heritage and being a Latina that I think that this just comes natural to me. Even though I believe it's very important for other cultures to immerse ourselves in the American culture, I just think it is important for us to celebrate where we're coming from, our background, and not necessarily compete, but just share and respect the differences. So I am not a part of HR myself, obviously, but I feel like I have been heavily involved one way or another with the diversity and inclusions efforts at the firm from a contributor perspective. Right now at Rowe Price, we do have an internal group that is called Latinx. And I feel like I've been part of that group from the very beginning. It originally, it started very organic. It wasn't as institutionalized. It was more like a group of Latin employees that wanted to come together, and we were kind of like figuring it out how we can make this work and what is the value that we're gonna add to the organization. So at the beginning, we just wanted to celebrate and share with all the employees our tradition and our culture. We also wanted to help any fellow Latinos, co-workers at the firm succeed by supporting them with our experiences and our network. We also wanted to make somehow an impact on the Latin community in Baltimore. So on the earliest stages of the group, we represented Rowe Price on Alpha meetings. Alpha is the Association of Latino Professionals for America. We also planned and executed the Hispanic Heritage Celebration. That event, I think we have been doing that for a while, but I remember being part of it for like the last 3 years, and I cannot tell you how much fun I had planning it and how much fun we actually had in the event. I think it was just like such a success. The food, the vibe, the music, it was just amazing. And we're bringing awareness of our culture and traditions to everyone else at Rowe. We also volunteered for some events with Spanish-speaking kids that at school they didn't know English, so we volunteered at events so we could translate for them on this event where they were getting opportunities to learn different career paths. But I feel like right now, Rowe Price has, because of the current environment and the climate that we're living, Rowe Price has stepped it up to a different level, to the next level. And we have a much more organized institutional sponsor approach. So it just shied away from the organic. Now we're like really organized and well structured. And I think my role, naturally it has morphed into something different. I am still very involved in all the initiatives that the group is developing, but I also feel that I took it upon myself to be an ambassador of Latin people at the firm And I did that, I think, unconsciously. I feel like I am an ambassador on like daily basis with my clients, with my coworkers. And I am teaching them, and through me, they're just learning that much more about Latin culture. And I think that they are hopefully potentially just getting the stigmas and the stereotypes and all those preconceived notions away. So my goal right now, and the way that I like to contribute the most, is bringing my voice out to everyone that has affinity to our Latin roots, grow our group, and also share what we're doing with everyone else at T. Rowe. So that makes me happy.
I love it. And just with the energy that you bring today, and from the very brief times I've interacted with you, Natalia, I can imagine that you were the perfect ambassador to represent that Latinx group at T. Rowe Price. And I just want to comment that that party sounds amazing, because
yes, it is.
The food, the music, and, you know, living in Buenos Aires, like I love and really appreciate Latino culture, although it's very large, right? The region's huge. So
we're actually having the celebration, the Hispanic Heritage Celebration tomorrow. We have our event. Maria has been leading the torch on the organization, and it's going to be awesome. We're going to have dancing classes, so it's just going to be epic. Even though it's going to be virtual, obviously, but.
Oh, but that sounds like so much fun. Okay. And so we had a question that came in that I wanted to hand off to Maria. So Maria, we had a question that came in that was asking about finding mentors and sponsors in your career, and how have you done that?
Well, I'd like to start by saying that when I first joined the firm, and I mentioned earlier, I was brought in because 25 years ago, not to age myself, the T. Rowe Price was just beginning in that trail to move into the Latin markets. And I just came in for an interview, did not have any finance background. I had a degree in psychology and public relations, and I needed a job. And when I got to T. Rowe Price, and I expressed my concerns about not maybe knowing the finance area, and if I was really prepared to do what I was being asked to do and become a broker, I got so much support and encouragement, and I was given classes. I was able to get my Series 7, 6, 63. I became a broker. And then my career started growing. I aligned myself with people that really were interested in my growth and my success. And every time I hesitated or I was a little concerned about taking the next step, there was somebody right there saying, not only are you going to do it great, but you're bringing this bicultural background that is going to make us better. And I kept succeeding and getting further along. At one point, I was reading a prospecti that was translated, and there were errors in the translation, and I was asked to meet with the head legal counsel. And you know, you're 26 years old and you feel like you don't know what you're doing, and I was heard. And that brought me into another step in my career where I started editing and proofreading legal documents and marketing pieces that were going to be presented to clients. So after a few years of getting all this experience and all this support within the company, I ended up leaving and going, helping my husband. He had this dream to start his own company. And I would have never been able to do that if I didn't have the support and the mentors and the encouragement that I received at the young age from T. Rowe Price. I was then tasked to start this company from nothing and go meet with the governor and get certain things done. And, you know, I don't think I ever realized how much T. Rowe had done for me until I had to be the leader, the boss, the head of the HR and accounting. And, you know, all these, when you own your own company, you're wearing every hat. And I did it every day for 15 years. And I like to say that, you know, we were very successful. And after my children grew, I wanted to come back. I had this real passion and will to come back and pay back what had been given to me. That again, when you're young, you don't realize the importance of that gift. And like I said, this is one of the opportunities that you can only dream about, to be able to share that passion and that love and the gratitude that I have for a company that truly made me who I am today. Go back to that corporate environment. And I think somebody else mentioned earlier, my resume might not show all the skills that I actually accumulated over 20 years of, running a business. And I came back to Rowe Price, and the doors were open to me again. And I have been supported since the day that I started back. And it's just such a gift. And now I feel like I want to mentor other people within my team. I learn so much from them. I like to say that I'm the old person in this panel, and I learned so much from the young ladies, and the world has changed and they're willing to collaborate. And to me, that is my passion. I think when you are willing to listen, but also to share your experiences, you become so fulfilled. And again, this company has given me that opportunity, and for that, I'm most grateful.
I love it. And Maria, there was just so much authenticity coming through everything you were saying, and so much passion. I really felt it. And it was very lovely to listen to your story. And you don't look a day over 25 realistically. So don't worry about aging yourself, because you do not look over 25. And the energy that you bring also backs that up. So thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for the question. Diving into this last question, I want to pass it over to Jasmine. So where can companies go for guidance on how to put a bigger focus on diversity and inclusion for advice and guidance?
So I found that, really engaging with other D&I leaders is a great approach, especially in this space, given, the nature of how quickly the world is evolving. It's been really great to spend time and have conversations with other D&I leaders in the industry, and even those outside in different sectors that are working to address diversity, equity, and inclusion. So one such think tank environment that I've really enjoyed being a part of is the Conference Board's D&I Leadership Group. It's been incredibly beneficial to engage with these leaders, especially as there's just so much change happening in the world around us today. I can also say that different resources like Catalyst, Diversity Best Practices, and Gartner's D&I Leadership Council have been great resources as well. And, I would also say, aside from other, D&I practitioners and those best practice sites, I think I would really engage any organization that's working toward increasing its focus on DE&I to engage with its employee population. There are some great insights that can be gleaned from having conversation, whether it's through focus groups or pulse surveys about associate sentiment. If an organization is thinking about areas of opportunity to enhance or perhaps pivot its D&I strategy and those approaches.
I love this. And thank you so much for providing so much insightful information today, Jasmine, about what we can do and what steps we really should be taking. So I really want to thank you for that. And we have another question that came in that I wanted to push to Natalia. So the person writes, like the ladies on the panel, I embrace all my identities, but I also want to be seen as a person. How do you balance your authenticity when you are also a professional that wants to be known for your talent?
100%. Oh my God, that's such a good question. I love it, because I actually struggle with that as well. I think that the best way to be identified as a person is just by being yourself. I know that with coming from a background of being Latina, there are, like I said, preconceived notions about you, but your work and your actions and your merits will speak louder than your race, your culture, your religion, or whatever that might be. So in my case, I feel that over the course of the years at Rowe Price, I have been given the opportunity, my workplace and the atmosphere that we have at work is it has enabled me to show and to display my skills as the ones that have got me to where I am, and not necessarily the fact that I am this or that in terms of, you know, a minority. So I think that just like that used to be an insecurity of mine as well. I was like, now they are I'm probably gonna be held back, and I am only gonna be, I guess, chosen for certain jobs just because of the stereotype of the Latina or the ones that only need a Spanish speaker. But I think having open-minded managers and having that inclusion at work, someone that can like look beyond that and get past that, will allow you to show all your capabilities and skills, and that will speak louder than anything else.
I love it. Thank you so much. And it is so important to be authentic, but definitely understand wanting to still be professional. So thank you so much. So we are coming up on time here, but I wanted to cover our last takeaways for the conversation and what the speakers have for us to take away. So let me just go to our introduction slide again. Perfect. Okay. And so first, I want to hand this off to Maria to give us your last takeaways.
Well, I think everybody said it in so many ways, and it's been such an amazing panel. So thank you, ladies, for sharing all of this with all of us. But the bigger thing that I can tell you, my takeaway would be, do not run away from an opportunity. I think women tend to just sell themselves short right away. I heard somebody else mention that when a woman looks at an application, they want to make sure that they meet every single requirement before they even think that they can apply. I think if you feel that this is something that speaks to you, that you have some of the qualifications and you're willing to learn and pursue that opportunity, don't sell yourself short. Go after it. I have been gifted, like I said, with a long, beautiful, wonderful career and a toolkit that I could only have dreamed about. And it was only because I kept taking challenges that might not have been 100% suitable for me, or maybe I didn't have every single qualification, but I had somebody that believed in me, that pushed me a little bit further. So don't sell yourself short, and be willing to learn from others, be willing to listen to feedback. Always want to grow in this virtual environment. I'll close by saying I'm used to, as a corporate events lead manager, I'm used to doing events with people and you know, being in front of places. And now I had to learn a lot of the technical aspects. And instead of running away, I've taken probably no less than 50 webinars on how to execute a virtual event. So be willing to learn and grow and just get out of your box. And with that, I will turn it over to Natalia. What are your takeaways for the audience?
Yes, of course. Gracias, Maria. Omaru. I actually have, I think, 3 pieces of advice, humble advice, based on my personal experience. Number 1 is to always have a positive attitude. When I joined Rowe Price, I knew I had a clear path in my head that I wanted to grow and evolve within the firm. And something that has helped me along the way is have a positive attitude. And I feel like all my managers have expressed that to me several times. And it's very refreshing for managers to have that perspective. And you know, someone that is enthusiastic, energetic, and like Maria said, that comes a little bit natural for us Latinas and Latinos. So that's number 1. Number 2 is embrace yourself. Sometimes, even right now, like sometimes I had anxiety and I have a fear that because of my accent that is so thick, can't get rid of it, but that my accent was going to hold me back, that I wasn't going to be able to progress because, you know, people weren't going to understand me. But the moment I embraced my accent, I realized it was one of my biggest assets, and it was going to make me memorable, and it was going to make me unique. So as an example, I used to, at some point in my career, I used to travel around the US, providing education to different type of audiences. I travel around many states. And at first I was quite afraid that people, they weren't going to understand me, that I wasn't going to have any credibility because of my accent. But then when I decided to stay true to myself, be genuine, tell them about my story, and explain to them how grateful and fortunate I felt to be there, educating them, all I saw in people's faces was appreciation. And in fact, they felt more comfortable coming to me than some of my peers, because I make myself more human, more available, and more accessible. So embrace yourself, and I think you will go a long way. And lastly, I just have to say, do not be afraid of hard work. I knew I had to work twice as hard as everyone else. I mean, everyone else that had English as their native language. I was learning a brand new set of skills in a second language that I didn't learn until I was like in my 20s. So I just knew that I had to put in the work. I knew I had to, for example, I had to pass 5 different financial licenses in a language that wasn't mine. And I went to school for communication and PR. So for me, hard work, studying more than everyone else, going the extra mile, it only gave me the preparation that I needed to feel more confident. So if putting the extra work and studying harder means that I'm gonna feel more prepared and therefore more confident, I think I'm up for the challenge. And with that, I will pass it on to Gabby. What are your thoughts?
Thank you. That was beautiful. So I really want to stress that taking risks has really paid off for me. And I believe that taking risks overall really pays off. I work in the new field within asset management, which is environmental, social, and governance. And this really didn't exist, as I was telling you earlier, 10 years ago when I first started in this space. And now it's a very important aspect of the business. And I have the privilege to lead the effort for Rowe Price from the corporate side. Also, I've learned that corporate culture really counts. And this is a big shout out to Rowe Price. Even though I onboarded during a pandemic, and so far I've only met 2 people in person, and I've been on this job for a little over 2 months, I feel more connected to all of my colleagues than I've ever felt in any of my other jobs. And so this really speaks volumes of Rowe Price. And I really want people to remember that corporate culture counts so much. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jasmine. What do you think?
Thank you so much for that, Gabriela. I would say, as far as a takeaway, that authenticity is key. After hearing about Maria, Natalia, and Gabriela's journeys as Latinas in the workplace, and even reflecting on my own journey as an Afro-Caribbean woman, I'm reminded of the value that we bring to the organization and to the workplace based on our unique backgrounds and our lived experiences. And so, for me, I would encourage anyone that might be wearing a mask or not feeling fully confident bringing their authentic selves to work to do so. It's exhausting holding back components of your identity. I know that I've had personal experience navigating through that, and it is so freeing to just be myself. Lean into those areas of difference. Bring your authentic self to work and unapologetically make an impact within your sphere of influence would be my closing remarks.
I love it. Thank you all so much for being here and sharing all of that helpful information and all of your incredible insights, and really just, I think more than anything, just showing how at home and how comfortable you feel at Rowe Price, which is so important, especially for diversity initiatives at this time. So thank you so much. And so we have time for one more piece of news from Rowe Price. And for that, I will turn it over to Julie Higgins, Head of Employer Branding for the company.
Thanks so much, Nicole. And hopefully all of you have enjoyed this last hour. I know I've learned a lot, even from my own colleagues, and I'm so proud of everybody that was participated today, and also for the questions that came in from all of you. So thanks again. I just want to briefly underscore, if it isn't clear already, the fact that we are really looking to increase our visibility within the Latina community and awareness of Rowe Price amongst female professionals in general. We have over 180 open roles at the firm across a variety of disciplines right now. as shown on screen here. Very diverse offerings. And you can access all of these on the Power to Fly page or by going to troweprice.com/careers. Please follow us on Power to Fly. Please also consider joining the next event that we're staging with Power to Fly, which is a technology-focused event on October 21st at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's going to be a really great event with breakout rooms, lots of information, more information about our tech practice. And please sign up on the Power to Fly site for that event. Thanks again for joining us. Bye, everybody.
And thank you to everyone. And I hope that you all have a non-2020 day in these very crazy times. And I really just want to thank you so much for being here, to our panelists who were so lovely, so authentic, and had such great energy. Gracias a ustedes y gracias a ustedes que vinieron a escuchar. Bueno, chao, que tienen un buen día.